Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Philadelphia Magazine's first ever virtual Secrets from the C-Suite presented by Comcast Business. My name is Fabiola, and I'm a senior editor here at Philly Mag. We're really excited to be launching Secrets from the C-Suite virtually today to help us all find some much needed connection. I believe we're in week 8 of Philadelphia's stay-at-home order. That's daunting. I never thought I'd see a time where I'd have to stay home for 8 weeks, but it's necessary. So we hope that C-Suite can help us all connect to local leaders who might have some answers to some big unknowns. For example, what is the city going to look like some months from now? What is the city going to look like a year from now? And more importantly, how do we all move forward together? So I hope everyone watching right now is well. I hope you're safe. I hope you have some lunch in front of you, and thank you for joining us. Our very special guest today to kick off this series is Todd Carmichael, as you all know. So Todd and I are going to talk all things coffee today, but more importantly, we're going to talk about how Todd has weathered the shock of the pandemic. We'll talk for about a half hour, then we'll have about 15 minutes for questions from all of you. So we encourage you to ask questions throughout the duration of this entire conversation. So if you look at your control bar on the right side of your screen, you'll see a box for questions. Enter them there, and when the time comes, I'll be able to take a look. We'll wrap up at 12:45. So before I bring Todd back onto the screen, here's a message from our sponsor, Comcast Business.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Mike Loudon, Vice President of Comcast Business here in the Philadelphia region. First and foremost, I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy during these challenging times. Comcast Business is proud to partner with Philadelphia Magazine to present the Secrets from the C-Suite virtual series. Throughout this series, we'll have conversations with some of the most influential business leaders in the region, and today's event is no exception. We hope the virtual discussion will be a welcome distraction from our current situation. Most importantly, I hope that the series provides key insights and serves as inspiration to those business leaders and aspiring entrepreneurs here today. As a business community, we're all facing challenges with COVID-19. Whether you are a small business having to temporarily close your doors, or a large enterprise now dealing with a remote workforce, we have all had to adapt to this new normal. Comcast Business is no exception. We have quickly adapted to how we support our employees, our customers, and how we interact with our business partners. What has become more apparent than ever is that connectivity is critical to a business's success. At Comcast Business, we're helping businesses, both large and small, stay connected to the internet, data centers, customers, suppliers, their remote workforce. So when connectivity matters, Comcast Business is here. So if you're having challenges or want to take a look at your network, please don't hesitate to reach out to Comcast Business. We'd be happy to help. So once again, thank you for joining us to get in on Secrets from the C-Suite, and we hope to see you all in person very soon. Thank you, stay safe, and enjoy.
Awesome. All right. Thank you again to Comcast Business for sponsoring our virtual Secrets from the C-Suite event series. So without further ado, I'd love to bring Todd Carmichael onto the screen. Awesome. Here you are, Todd.
How are you doing? You know, I got to say before we speak that I'm a huge fan of Philadelphia Magazine. David Libson, who is one of the community leaders, as well as Comcast. We're very fortunate to have both of these organizations in Philly.
Perfect. And we are very fortunate to have you with us here today, kicking things off. I also want to shout out the nearly 500 people who actually signed up to be with us today. That is incredible. So let's get to it, right? As I said in the intro, we're 8 weeks into a stay-at-home order, but I kind of want to take us back a little bit. Todd, can you take us back to February to when, or to a point in February where you thought, or where you finally realized that the coronavirus was going to completely change the world?
I would say it was around February 15th or maybe a couple days before that. It was pretty obvious that the storm was coming. I didn't really understand the severity of it or the size, but something was on the horizon. And so I made the first move to pull us out of a trade show, a really, really important trade show in California. That gathers about 200,000 people in one spot in Anaheim. And, you know, with what was going on in Asia, I felt I know enough about the world that you can't contain things like a virus in one geographical area. So I pulled out. And at the time, I think people thought I was a bit of a nervous Nelly. Frankly, they thought maybe I was too liberal or I was watching too much MSNBC, which I do, and I am. But that was the first move, and then as it started to kind of come across the country, we were at least mentally prepared for the kind of decisions that we would have to make in the next couple of weeks.
Right. So what were some of those early decisions, right? Like February 15th is very early. Like I believe South by Southwest didn't cancel the whole conference until maybe early March. Coachella didn't cancel until like around the same time. And those are huge, huge events. So once you made that call on February 15th and we're moving further in, how did you, like, what did you prioritize, I guess? And how did you start to make those huge decisions?
Well, I mean, the first thing that you need to do is, I think, recognition that there's a blow coming. You prepare for that blow. And in that preparation, your thoughts go to stabilization. How can we stabilize this? I mean, keep in mind, La Colombe is a giant airplane. We have about 1,000 passengers. Those are employees with families. We have two motors, really big jet engine pieces to that, and a little motor on back, and two of them are out in the next 2 weeks. So how are you going to continue to fly and stabilize the aircraft? That's the first thing. And all the while, you're thinking about, the blood flow within the company, but you're also thinking about the safety. We're coffee. We're not the police force, the fire department. We're not in utilities. We're coffee. We're not key to the operation of the country. So there's no way I could put any of my people in harm's way. So we started at the factories, spreading out, and we went to go immediately at the cafe. And the moment I think 44 cases in Pennsylvania, I just closed the whole damn thing down.
Wow. Yeah. And so how did you, talk to me about your leadership style? My understanding, right, is that you usually sit back, you kind of assign things out to folks. Did you feel like you had to be more hands-on when you saw this happening? And my understanding is that you had some chalkboards involved as well in all of this. What did that look like?
Well, I'm kind of known within the company that there has to be chalkboards in every room because I'm going to fill them up. And founders like myself and my business partners and others, we tend to be intimately involved in every aspect of the business to begin with. We're not your classic executives. We do fill that role, but to have our fingerprints on everything is really, really key. Here, the first move was I need a war room. So my COO, Chuck, and I put together, Matt, and he's from Special Forces, Penn MBA, rock star. I mean, I really put together an incredible war room. And I wanted to be a part of that war room rather than be the dictator of the company. It's not a true democracy, but it's more like putting together a rock solid, Senate, and everything would flow through that. And to this day, every day begins with 90 minutes of war room every single day, and we haven't missed a minute. And it's really that helps stabilize, because one brain can come up with a lot of brilliant ideas, but 12 brilliant brains can come up with even more. And so that stabilization process took maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And it began with everyone in that war room giving up their salaries.
Wow.
That the sacrifice has to come from the top, that's where sacrifice begins. We made the commitment that we didn't want to throw people out of the airplane. That wasn't going to be part of the equation, that we were going to care for our people, not only in terms of their safety for those who continue to operate, but also for those who are staying at home. You shouldn't lose your job over this. I'm really fearful that the unemployment rate is going to be huge at the end of this. I predicted it to be about 2.5 months ago, above 20%. So you can't let people go in that. You're sending them out to their deaths. And so we said, all right, let's commit. Let's do this correctly. The first thing I wrote on the board was, we're on our own. No one's going to help us. Yeah. All of this is being recorded. Everything we say and do is being recorded. Because in the future, when we look back, the question of what did you do during COVID is going to come up constantly. And we're going to recording. So it gives us the opportunity to stay committed to the things that we hold dear. It gives us the opportunity to be acid tests or stress test our beliefs and our brand and the rest of it. And in a lot of ways, we choose to look at this as a very painful opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. So can you talk a little bit more about just culture at La Colombe right now? Like, do you feel that the pandemic has given you the opportunity to kind of reinforce those values that you already had? So for example, right, you not taking a salary, not laying anyone off. How does that kind of reinforce the culture that La Colombe already had in place? Like, do you feel like your employees feel safe right now?
Yeah, I think it's, again, it's an opportunity to live your beliefs. You don't even have to broadcast it. You just let people watch you. And it's, this is the real deal. All those people who are charitable washing or greenwashing or just faking it with their language. And, here's the test. Are you true?
Yeah.
Are you real? Is this really who you are?
Yeah.
A lot of companies aren't. I mean, you read about them in the press all the time. They're saving themselves. Value in just saving yourself.
Right.
There's value in saving everybody that's part of your, if it's a family, then nobody should die. See, you hear these companies saying, well, we're like a family. Yeah, really? So when you get a program in the front yard, like, no, you don't. And so
Right.
it's the opportunity to live who we are.
Right. Yeah, I want to actually share some numbers. So we actually this morning got some new numbers about unemployment. So 3 million more people filed for unemployment. So right now in the past 8 weeks, it's 36.5 million people who have filed for unemployment. Now we also have Goldman Sachs that's saying the unemployment rate could hit 25%, basically rivaling the Great Depression, but most economists are saying it'll probably officially be around 18%. Like, yeah. For you as a business owner, and for you just on a human level, like, what do these numbers mean to you? Like, is that something you ever thought our country would see in how developed it is, essentially?
Well, I know the impact because I was born and raised in unemployment. I'm a small town boy where the factories left, and I've seen what it does to communities, and I've seen what it does to families. I've seen what it does. Suicide rate increases, dependency on alcohol, drugs, families break up. It's not just a number. It's more than a number. It is something that, yeah, I mean, we leave it in the mouths of economists to talk about, but ultimately it hits home to everybody. And that's why it's more important than ever that leaders, that keep their people, that you keep your stuffing in as much as you can, because that's not a place you want to send anybody. It destroys lives. It destroys lives. And it's something that I just, I think as a city, if we hold ourselves together and we hold our leaders accountable, including those that are in office, we can avoid a big piece of that. I mean, Philadelphia is already the largest, the poverty level for the size is number one in the United States of America. It can't afford another digit. And so it really needs us to start thinking differently, and it means taking care of each other.
Right. And speaking of thinking differently, I feel like the pandemic maybe introduced some new language into how we talk about workers and businesses with the discussion of essential and non-essential. Can you talk about, like, just, right, who's essential, who's not? Do you take issue with the way people are being categorized and the way some people are being thrown up in the front line? And how does that apply to your team members at La Colombe?
Well, it seems like there are a couple meanings to essential, right? I mean, there's the standard one that I adhere to, which is, those people, almost like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those people at the very bottom who are keeping us alive. So doctors, nurses, ambulance drivers, medics, and these things like this, people in the utilities, so electricity, water, gas, and basic foods, police department, fire department. Those are those people we're talking about. And a big piece of those have actually signed up for the idea that their job is risky. Now, I think the term is being used to say, well, we really need this, so we're going to put you in harm's way. Like, coffee is not essential. It is, I feel, emotionally essential to me, and I think to my family, but it's not that fucking important. Not more important, not as important that we could put someone in harm's way.
Yeah.
So I think it's an excuse to put in. I don't think anyone should be put in harm's way, right? I mean, the military, they choose to do that. Okay. But if you're a baker, no, you shouldn't have to face death every day to make a loaf of bread, okay?
So I want to kind of talk into how La Colombe maybe had to this time.
So can you repeat that?
Yeah, it got cut off a little bit.
Yeah.
I can hear you now. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about how La Colombe has maybe had to pivot, or if you could also talk about how having a diverse portfolio, right? So not just having cafes, but also having connections with retailers, having connections with grocers. How has that allowed La Colombe to kind of remain afloat, essentially?
Yeah. Well, to take it back, this is 26 years and 3 weeks, so we've been around a little bit. And for the first 15 years, it was just one thing, really. It was we roasted for other people. We're purveyors. We belonged in the service of great chefs. And we had a single cafe. And I realized that was a bit of a risky business, so I added the cafe kind of sequence to it. So we have, 34 cafes. And so that was double. I recognized the import of online a long time ago, so we developed a site, and we really invested a lot in that e-com platform, so that became free. And then I invented this crazy thing called the draft latte, and that into that arena. So we're kind of 4 arenas, and then we're able still to kind of make it through, at least stay afloat. Now the e-com platform, make no mistake about it, it's exploded. I mean, it's literally thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds a week that are coming out of our Tioga factory for America. The same goes for big pieces of that CPG or that grocery category, like lattes are blowing up. The multi-serve blowing up, the roasted coffee blowing up. So those two haven't completely ended the damage, but they've grown. And it's like we jumped into these life rafts, and then they kind of just got really big while we were in them. Still have a negative burn rate. It's still, we're still blowing cash out the back end. They keep us flowing, and I keep teams working. We're operating in an extraordinarily inefficient way right now in the plants for safety, but it's that's what you have to do. I mean, the challenge isn't are you going to open or you're not going to open. No, that's not the challenge anymore.
Yeah,
it's like, can you do that safely? And if you can't, how could you modify it where you can do that safely? I want people to come in and enjoy a coffee at the cafes relatively soon. And from the outside, the curb appeal should be, oh my God, this is the safest place on planet. That's what it has to be. The new marketing is actually safety, right? Like that's so that we pivoted, they grew, we had something to rely on, and now the challenge is like, how do you bring those other two back online in a way that the rest of the country wants to copy?
Right.
That's kind of what we're moving towards now.
Great. So I want to hear more about your mindset. Like, what kind of state of mind is Todd Carmichael in right now, right? So for me, when I think about your life, right, you've broken world records, you've trekked across Antarctica, you've put yourself in these situations where clearly you've tested the limits. So how does coronavirus maybe take you back to what you've learned in those kinds of situations? And what can other people gain from that, from what you've learned there?
Well, I think the easiest way to put that is you have to go into expedition mode. You have to recognize that a great deal of the emotions you have are just first world situation. I mean, they're luxuries, they're privileges, like fear, anxiety, and stress. No, you need to throw that overboard. You need to go into that single-minded expedition mode. It's like this. It's really cold in Antarctica, like cold. I mean, it got down to 100 below, and I hadn't seen anyone in 2 months, and you lose 40 or 50 or 60 pounds of your body weight. You get thrown to the ground constantly, and it's 50, 60 knots. And so what you don't do is talk about how cold it is. That's just a time. You don't talk about in your mind about how windy it is or how lonely it is, or that's just the environment. What you need to do is train your mind on what needs to be done and stay there. That's it. And there'll come a time, I think, way in the future, I'll be sitting in a park bench in Rittenhouse Plaza and I'll have a mild mental breakdown. Yeah. Yeah. And it's all over with. But not right now. Not right now. I don't have that privilege. So you just isolate it. And you have to abandon this modern philosophy that life has to be in balance. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but that's bullshit. If you have balance right now, you must be doing some sort of heavy pharmaceuticals because your life is by definition out of balance.
Right.
Give yourself a little snack once in a while with a little yoga, but ultimately, no, you're in a storm. It shouldn't feel smooth. Just ignore it.
Yeah. What do your days look like right now? Like, how are you sleeping, eating, working, wise? What does that look like?
I'm not very disciplined with things like eating. They happen when it's there. So I don't really do that. But what I find is, at times like this, and it's the reason behind a lot of the things I've done, I try to emulate my heroes. It's a time to be heroic. So find your hero. Now, my heroes right now are like Newton. Now, crazy dude, right? Completely madhouse, crazy, and smarter than all of us combined. But, he was kicked out of Cambridge to go back to his little cottage because of a thing called the plague. And so they quarantined the guy for a number of months. And when he came out, he had laid down the laws of physical nature, understood the concept of gravity, discovered calculus and Newtonian physics. Right? So he used that time to create in his mind and on paper. So right now I'm spending most of my time I would normally be sleeping in my lab. I want to change the world of beverage, and I'm going to do it during quarantine. I'm just trying to emulate my heroes.
Right.
Newton wasn't in balance, and hey, Einstein did the same thing. Persecution of the Jews. He had to hide out for 3 or 4 years before he published his papers. Man, it became really good though. He had extra time to work on it.
Yeah.
They took that time not to seek out, pleasure or balance or to get ripped. They changed the course of the world.
So you're looking at this as a time of innovation. And I want to push back a little bit because I feel like the internet would disagree with you right now, right? Because when the pandemic first started happening, when we were a couple of weeks into the shutdown, right? We saw so many memes coming out. People were on Twitter tweeting and saying, hey, like if you don't write, the next 1,000-page book, that's okay. This is a new unprecedented thing that we've never been through. You need to relax. You need to, like, what would you say to the people who are like, take it easy, take it slow? Like, is that just not your...
No, I get it. I listen to the radio. I love it, right? So I listen to, it's Alexa, so I shift around and I yell bullshit at it every time they say that. I was like, come on, you have your retirement for that. This is an opportunity. Time is the most difficult, most precious, commodity we have. So why don't you just take yours and just pour it down the drain? You go, no. And I'm not saying you have to write the next greatest American. How about the most beautiful haiku you can come up with? How about put together that photo album that your family's history, or, like go in and use this time and to really apply your mind to something that you want to get. Listen, I like Netflix like the other guy, but if you're given a little bit of extra time, it doesn't mean you're going to crush the buffet 24/7. You should like challenge yourself.
Yeah.
I think my mind is more settled when I'm challenging myself, when I'm trying to work on a technical puzzle. And I think that there's loads of people, listen, I have got 16 patents. I'm a farm boy with an accounting degree. I'm not qualified for that. The only reason I have 16 patents is because I tried. There's loads and loads and loads of people at home now who are more skilled at, those things than I am that could do it if they just applied. So I say, challenge yourself. It'll make you happy.
Right. How are you talking to your kids about all this, right? I assume your kids, right, they're not in school, physically in school. How are they taking this and how are you helping them manage?
Well, it starts out that we have a communication dialogue with the kids that is really, really open. We want our children to be around the bigger issues in life from a very small age up. Whether that's, even politics, race, religion, like we are open. And my kids are all adopted. but they were adopted. Now they're not adopted anymore. Now they're just kids. But
Yeah.
so, that openness was a super important part of them really kind of finding their footing as people. So when we along, it was the platform was already created, and we just spelled thoughts, and I told them how safe they were, but we had to be precautious. And it's interesting enough, my oldest, 17, we were doing dishes, and which is a very therapeutic thing, by the way. I advise dishes to everybody. And she turned to me, she goes, Dad, I really needed this. Like, you'd be surprised what your kids are thinking. Just take a break from that social pressure and just focus on your work. It's hardest on my little guy. He's a hockey player. He's 9. There's no hockey, and it's just killing him. But we try to make up for that in other ways. But ultimately, I think that if you've created an environment where your kids already feel safe no matter what, it's an easy, you're already a communicating family. It's not a very difficult thing, but you got to keep your eye on them, right?
Right. So I feel like we're at the point in the pandemic where, we're seeing protests across the country, folks calling for things to reopen. We actually just published a story about how certain beaches at the Jersey Shore are going to be open this weekend. What are your thoughts around reopening? Like, is it too soon right now? Should we be thinking about what it looks like to reopen differently, and how do we rethink that?
Well, first, I think we need to get our words right. I think that the binary open and closed is a thing of the past. That doesn't exist anymore. There's no such thing as opened and closed. That just seems like it's so. I think that there's closed. There is kind of an operating safe mode, and then maybe 3 years from now we can open. But I don't think La Colombe's going to open for 2 or 3 more years. It can't until the threat is gone. What you need to do is challenge yourself to figure out a way to do it in a safe way. Now, if you said to me we're going to open the country, I would say, okay, I'm not leaving my house for 2 years, you freaks. This is stupid. But if you tell me we have concocted a way of safely conducting ourselves in society without killing people, I'm like, great. That's not really open, but that's what we have to think like. It's not. I really resent this conversation, which is like, okay, our choice is open up and kill a bunch of people or stay closed. Right. That's not the choice. That's a false choice. The choice is, do you do this safely or do you do this dangerously? And I'm all for the safely way. And I think we have the intelligence as a people and as CEOs and business people to allow for some operation that would help us move forward, and we can do it in a safe way. Discos, that's just crazy talk, right? But I think people Wawa, not all at the same time, right? I think that people can go to gas stations, not all at the same time. It's like we just have to rethink it, and we have to abandon this old binary way of thinking.
What other changes do you see as being permanent, right? So I feel like during this pandemic, we've had to, right, when we're in line at the grocery store, stand 6 feet apart. We're now wearing masks. What other things do you see as being here to stay? Well, like a decade later, this is something that our society adopted during the pandemic. This is going to be with us forever.
Well, I think the first one is that the government and the local leaders will be prepared. I mean, this was the first time to the prom. I think time through, we would have gained some intellectual kind of, thinking that would help us next time. I think our response system is going to be different. We're paying for unpreparedness right now. We're absolutely paying for that. But next time, we won't be. Yeah. The availability of items, I know, so I travel a lot in certain parts of Asia where you buy coffee, and you can go to the local store and there's PPE everywhere. I mean, before people buy it, it's like buying, Kleenex. You couldn't find a single one in any store in America, though. I think that'll change. So, our response time is going to be a lot different, and that's going to be good. But then also this. So you look at this, just consumer behavior will forever change. So, 66% of us have changed brands. We lost our sense of brand loyalty and we bought whatever, and that's it. And a third of it will stay. because you were forced to do something, right? Okay, look at this. So I think I might have mentioned this to you the other day, but the subway or the tube in London went on strike for a week, right? And it forced everyone to find different ways to get to work. And then when the strike came off, only 70% of the people came back because 30% of them had recognized, damn it, I was forced to innovate and I like my innovation answer better. I like to get to work this way better. So it'll never shift all the way back to where it was. You have changed your behaviors, and consumer behaviors really dictate a lot about what's going on in the economy and the market and how we view the world. So it's permanently altered in those ways.
Right. So final question before I kind of move to what the audience wants to hear from you. Moving forward, what are you worried about? Is there anything that you're like, oh, this is something that I still haven't found a solution to. This is something I'm working through right now. So just what are you most worried about? Then also, what are you most excited for as we move into the summer months and into the fall this year?
I'm mostly worried about our poor. I'm mostly worried about our children. You know, a lot of the education there's going to be a big missing tooth in their education, but like always, you know, the weight always falls on those that are poor, and I'm very frightened for them. I don't think that it's a foreign idea that people could starve to death in America. And that concerns me. You know, I live in Gladwin. I don't have any fears, really. Okay, I could be set back 10 years. Okay, really. But fear? My fear is for them and for the unemployed. You know, how about, and all those kids that are leaving college?
Yeah.
You know, you just worked your ass off your whole life. You borrow all this money. You're standing there with nothing, you know. That's my worries. You know, I don't want that for other people, you know. Right. And so that's it. Now, my greatest excitement is the opportunities that this allows people who are good at what they do. And one thing is true is that you don't really know what you love until you lost it for a little bit. I had this little tiny walk from my car to Fishtown office, and it was maybe, I don't know, 100 yards. I fucking miss it. I miss it. I could see the trees, and the side was way high, and then people walking the dogs, and I didn't realize how much I loved that 100-yard walk until I haven't been able to take it. And for a lot of things, you know, it's going to be a reawakening. I cannot wait to walk around in Rittenhouse Square.
Yeah.
And the flowers and the dogs and that's really, really think. And I think it's going to make us come alive like some kind of impressionist painting. You know, it's just going to be emotionally explosive. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah. You just painted a beautiful picture. I'm really excited for that too.
Yeah, I can't wait. You know what? There's a lot of people, and I'm not talking business here. You know, what inspired me to make my life this way is the same thing I remember back in the day when I was with the greatest chefs, you know, I still am in the world who cook for people. And when you see a great chef, he's looking through that little window in the door, and what they're looking for is the reaction in that person and the joy. It's that's the whole thing right there. It's like a stand-up comedian. It's the laugh. You're looking for the laugh. You know, we're looking for that. Oh my God, that's beautiful. And I can't wait to see that in people's faces again. I get that privilege of seeing it over and over and over. And I think there's a lot of people looking forward to having that. I know it's just a cup of hot whatever, but the joy is like the joy of seeing those dogs in the park, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Turning to some audience questions. So we have Erica here. She says, as a business owner and with an emphasis on thinking differently, do you believe in increasing the city's minimum wage?
I pretty been on record pretty loudly like that. I think that if you don't pay people, if you pay people below a living wage, you're exploiting them. I think it's exploitation. I think it should be illegal that people, the only way they could succeed in their business is to exploit humans. I think that the minimum wage should be right now 15. Now it depends because you have two kinds of wages. You have tipped out, you know, tip with no tip. So the take-home pay total should be above 15 minimum. There's a lot of businesses that disagree. I think it's medieval to do anything different.
Yeah.
Was I clear on that one?
Yeah, I think pretty clear.
Yeah, okay.
Awesome. So with Cameron, who is a college graduate, he said, what advice do you have for a college graduate like myself?
Well, I think the first piece of advice is to sit down and compose yourself. In any crisis, that's the first thing, is to stabilize. Try to get yourself to think as clearly as possible, right? And then you need to adjust, in school and in business, often they tell you that the playing field is only 2 years long. And that's right. The playing field is miles long.
Yeah.
And you look at the horizon and start setting your goals in long range. If you're judging your success based on how you perform over the next 6 to 8 months or a year and a half, you're just thinking right in the game that you should be playing. Your career is going to last your whole life.
Yeah.
Focus on that and make the right steps.
Great. All right, we have a question from Tim. Tim wants to know, has La Colombe applied for any of the federal relief programs? Have you had any dealings with the city of Philadelphia?
Yeah, well, I did. I put together 2 of the best law firms in the city, my team of executives, and I have a lot of connections to local, state, and federal, and we worked very hard, and we came up with Butkus. That just La Colombe is. When I looked at the applications in the small business, I could have cheated my way through that process.
Yeah.
Well, I have so many here and so many here, but I wouldn't do it. You had companies do that like Shake Shack and all those big companies. They got some money, but I just felt like it wasn't meant for me. It's meant for someone else who needs it, like who I was those years ago. So we didn't apply for that. Everything else we applied for. And the problem is when you're competing with Boeing and Delta and, they put me in the big, the big business category, and I got trampled. It's just like I couldn't get up the bar, man. It was just like, so La Colombe is either, too big or too small. And, I know that the mayor and I know that the governor are sympathetic, but there's nothing anyone's willing to do. So when we said we were on our own, we are. I walked across Antarctica alone. Alone isn't always such a bad thing. It would have made my life a great deal, easier. I'd probably have a little bit more body weight and I could sleep better, but we'll do more than just manage. But no, there was no one that was out there to help us.
Right. All right, I have a bit of a technical question from Glenn. Glenn says, hey, Todd, thanks for the interview. How would you recommend a small business that has lost 90% of its revenue to the closure of local farmers markets to pivot and sell online? Did you amass an email list or do you online advertise when La Colombe was making the e-commerce shift?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what? If you could email me, I can get you in touch with our DTC people, right? But the thing is, mine was more organic. We were like one of the first 1,000 sites on the internet. I mean, we were like real early adopters. In fact, we called it our mail order site, which is hilarious. That's how. Then, I had a TV series that really populated it, and then the growth of the company and the cafes just continues. So it was more of an organic thing. I don't know really how to launch a cut and dry website as a business. I always just kind of trailed it along like the little brother. And then I turned one day and the little brother was really big. That's kind of how we did it.
Okay. All right. I have a question from Zane, who is curious, are you taking any measures to ensure financial security to coffee producers, which you partner with? And someone else had a similar question from Jeff. You mentioned increased safety in plants. How does that transfer down the supply line? What is our responsibility to many of the suppliers that are working in countries and conditions that may not have the same emphasis on precautions, protection, and safety? So yeah, it sounds like a lot of, can you just speak to safety measures and financial security for your partners?
Well, financial security, we could talk to. The safety one is where we're handcuffed because I can't allow anyone to travel. I can't get them in country. We have a lot of dialogue with all of the different farmers, and they're saying yes, 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 but I can't guarantee anything until I go. The beautiful side is that 2/3 of those aren't in harvest anyway. So it's, they've harvested and sold. The ones that are in harvest are Brazil, and that's a mechanical harvest. They don't rely on so many pickers. So for the time being, at least until the end of this year or end of this summer, we feel a certain degree of security. At that time, we hope to be able to travel again. But I can't put any of my people on an airplane right now. Financial security is there. It's locked in because we trade on contracts, multi-year. And so those are locked in. The green coffee market is going way down, which would expose most everyone else. But if it goes way down, it doesn't affect our farmers. We're not trading on that everyday coffee anyway. You're trading on a specialty coffee, and the relationship isn't so much I'm the powerful one and they're the least powerful, because when you're really good at growing shit, I'm sorry, you're calling most of the shots, right? You really are. And so it's an equal relationship. But what I know, my mind goes through like Uganda, Burundi, it goes through Rwanda, and I start thinking of like Tanzania and Ethiopia, and I know there's not a lot of safety. You don't have OSHA there, they're very basic people who've seen a lot of hardship. So they're not going to give it the panic they need. So we're trying hard to communicate that message. These are people who've lived through wars and cholera and, genocide. And so when you say a virus is coming, it's really hard to ring the bell. That's an exposure, kind of like what we did, but more exaggerated. That's right. And then there was this really bizarre rumor that Black people didn't get sick. Yeah. Right. Which it's amazingly like a conspiracy if you really want to dig into the head, but they still believe this. Africans believe that this is a white man's disease. Super dangerous. So we're trying to communicate that message that it's not, that this is a human disease, right?
Right. Cool. So Luke wants to know, as a small coffee shop owner that is facing permanent closure, how can we go on without opening up? Do you think there's a safe way to do it, or absolutely not? Do you think there's any possibility for growth during this time?
Yeah. I'm going to give it a try. I think you have to think through it. I think that you have to make sure that your window isn't a window anymore, that it's a communication center for all the things that you're doing and that you expect from people. Yeah. I think you need to have lily pads every 6 feet. You need a door greeter. The door greeter's got to be in almost a hazmat suit, and at that time, and there are space places inside. They take the order at the door. They allow you to enter when that other person exits. When you have people in line, you have to hang plexiglass from the ceiling so you can have a person this way and that way. And then you got to boost the bar. If you go to 19th Street right now and look in the window, you'll see it. I think we just installed one there, where I just looked at pharmacies and said, let's make a pharmacy. That's what we're going to do. We're going to protect, because, pharmacies have been dealing with sick people for a long time. So go to a pharmacy and then copy that. There are a lot of companies that are popping up that do it pretty easily, and it's not that expensive, but you really do need. Now, your velocity and your success is going to depend on how good you are at keeping people safe. So if you're happy at that, you're not going to go anywhere. The competition now is who can be the safest. It's the ultimate marketing. So pour yourself into that. If you're trying to wait for a vaccine, you're right, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
The aim was to make sure we didn't overrun the hospitals. We succeeded. Now we're over that. Now it's like, how can we operate like society until we get an answer to this thing? And it might take a couple years. So, invest heavily in your security and safety.
All right. To wrap up, I just have one final question. How do you hope people remember your performance when they look back years from now and they're assessing what Todd Carmichael did? What do you hope that people remember about this time?
I think about this time, he executed according to his philosophies. He didn't abandon his principles. I've been in and out a lot of war zones, right? And I've seen a lot of really ugly things in the world. And one of the things that you notice is that when shit starts hitting the fan, people start losing their principles.
Yeah.
And those people who are the most heroic and the ones I've always admired are the ones that never did, no matter what. however ugly it got, they stayed true. And I guess that would be it. Todd stayed true.
Great. All right, everyone, that concludes our first Secrets from the C-Suite virtual event. Please join me in thanking Todd Carmichael. If you were all here, I can hear your applause. Thank you, Todd, for being with us today. I'm also excited to announce our upcoming speakers. So we have 2 more events, one next week and the week after that. So next week, I'll be joined by Rakia Reynolds, who's the founder and CEO of Skyblue Media. So that'll be happening Thursday at noon next week. And then the following week, I'll be joined by the co-founders of GoPuff, Yakir, and Raphael. So we're super excited for both of those events. Stay tuned, sign up for those. We'll see you back next week. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.